Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network.
And Doug, what do you say to people, and Bill Moore talked about this this weekend, that say you can't suggest that Donald Trump is a threat to American democracy,
violent rhetoric.
or else that's violent rhetoric, as Dan Henninger basically blamed Democrats for trying to kill Donald Trump. Of course, not talking about Donald Trump's violent rhetoric. But what would you say to those that say you can't even suggest that Donald Trump doing all that he did is a threat to democracy, or else you're engaging in political hate speech?
Well, it's nonsense. You know, I'm a practicing Catholic. When I see somebody like Donald Trump get shot in the ear, or what almost happened at Mar-a-Lago, you know, your prayers go off for him because you honor all humans. But if you're talking about the danger, the inherent danger of Donald Trump, he's radioactive. He wants to come in and gut government because it's rhetoric that sounds good. And you start trying to get rid of civil service, collapse the federal government, you are going to find a country in disarray.
Trump on Russia. Somebody told me the other day they beat Hitler, they beat Napoleon. That's what they do. Can you just give me a reaction? Just not, I mean, there's the usual Putin love in there, but just.
This has been this entire week of Donald Trump, fluffing Vladimir Putin in an amazing way. Just this, everything he said was pro-Moscow. He essentially said that he will end the war by cutting off all aid to Ukraine. I believe it was this morning on Morning Joe, the phrase was that he would ensure that another penny never enters Ukraine. And that's the way he would give Russia 5 Ukrainian provinces. And that's how he'd get it done in one night. The man's a moron. He has no idea what's going on there. People are dying by the thousands, mainly Russians. But when the Russians attack, they kill civilians only. They're bombarding civilians.
Yeah.
And so for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to completely surrender everything America has stood for, what we landed in Normandy for, to fight fascism, then communism, now the fascists are attempting to take over the American presidency again and give it all to Moscow. The man is the absolute worst.
Did I miss him calling someone else, Vladimir's President Zelensky, a con man? He said something about every time he comes here, he leaves with $1 billion. He's just, I mean, Malcolm, you couldn't even write Plot to Hack America today. It's just, the plot is so big and dumb and obvious. Like when you have Jill Stein refusing to call Vladimir Putin a war criminal, it's just so obvious who the Russian plants are, right?
Sure. That dinner she was at must have been just awesome. It must have been free caviar and shrimp all night, and with offers to walk into any Russian embassy at any time and get all the caviar and vodka she wants. I mean, a Lifetime Achievement Award for her. But sitting there going, oh, Jonathan Netanyahu, obviously Netanyahu, war criminal. Well, what about Vladimir Putin? Well, it's more complicated. She is just the absolute worst.
Yeah.
But now we have this entire pantheon of where the Republican Party itself is a wholly owned subsidiary of Moscow. And let me tell you, I've been fighting over the last 2 days for the people who wrote Project 2025 actually had the nerve to come onto my Twitter feed and call me a liar. I mean, they literally say to end all aid to Ukraine. They literally say cut veterans' benefits because those darn veterans are getting too much stuff out of them. It is literally the handbook for the dictatorship of America. And they go, well, if you would actually listen to Project 2025, this is false, this is false. And then he goes, but deporting 20 million people, that's true. I mean, these Nazis are proud of themselves.
And it's not just Trump is a moron, as you said. It's how many Americans are morons. I
70 million.
I saw these, an interview with a Trumper lady the other day about Putin, and she's like, well, he just wants what's his. They don't even have the basic. Ukraine isn't his. It's in his. This is not a complicated issue. This was an unprovoked attack on a sovereign nation.
And now you see why they want to get rid of the Department of Education to make Trump voters stupider. And they're pretty darn stupid. I mean, these people literally close their eyes to logic, close their eyes to anything but what's fed to them by this dictator wannabe. I mean, I really, I thought I had it up to here in 2016. Now I see that, as many as 49% of this country in this crazy horse race that the news media is trying to gin up here really believe that America must be a dictatorship. What I don't see in the news media is this, them saying clearly, all right, do you want to eat shards of glass or a big hamburger? And they go, well, I don't know. How is that hamburger cooked?
Yeah.
They literally will not spell out that Project 2025, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance mean to end the American experiment and turn it into his cult. And, I've been harping on this from the beginning. You show me a plan that's going to start on day one where they're going to go door to door, set up police checkpoints, set up National Guard checkpoints all over the country to posse comitatus, the armed forces of the United States, to hunt down foreigners, including the 5,000 legal ones in Springfield, Ohio, legal ones who are educated and working here, and that this country isn't going to spiral into a horrific semi-civil war over whether we hunt our neighbors down. Oh, by the way, those checkpoints, they're going to stop all of you to determine whether you're an American or not.
Yeah.
And if you ever thought that you would live to see a day that we become like Nazi Germany in the 1930s, well, you may be less than 40 days away from that unless we mobilize this nation to win.
You retweeted Democrats abroad. Speak of their latest effery. You tell us our vote from abroad has power without telling us our vote from abroad has power. Looks like someone is a little flustered, learning our 6+ million Americans abroad votes are going to stand in the way between him and the White House. Do you know an American abroad? Votefromabroad.org. I mean, Malcolm, we were just saying they're coming up with new and creative ways to try to suppress the vote. I mean,
absolutely. You have a really big listener base. Remember when I was in Copenhagen, and one of your listeners in Copenhagen said, the only place Malcolm Nance is going to be is on this tour boat jetty. And I get off the boat, and this guy goes, hey, I heard you on Steffi this morning in Copenhagen. Wow. There are millions of good Americans working overseas. Let me point out to almost 1 million of them. Oh, the armed forces of the United States.
Yeah.
All vote abroad using absentee ballots. I recall in 1980, an entire election hinging on 23,000 supposed military ballots that came in overseas after the election date. So Donald Trump wants to end all of that. Project 2025 slashes all of that. We have congressmen and senators who want to make sure that votes of Americans overseas do not count, including armed forces votes. Yeah. They are willing to cheat at every turn here.
Yeah.
And by the way, love Democrats abroad. I was a Democrat abroad for almost 10 years, voting out of the United Arab Emirates. So good job, Dems abroad.
There's no denying it. The vibes are really good right now. But vibes alone won't save our democracy. We need votes. At the Grassroots Democrats HQ, we know what it takes to win elections. Knocking doors, making calls, sending texts, and writing postcards. If we're going to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and give them the Democratic Congress to pass their agenda, then we need to roll up our sleeves and talk to a record number of voters between now and November 5th. But let's be clear, we can't do it without you. So, are you ready to work? This is a fight for freedom and our future, and everything is at stake. Don't wake up on November 6th wishing you had done more. Join us. Go to grassrootsdems.org today to sign up to volunteer, and let's go win this thing.